Alright, you masters, this is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today we're going to talk about survival hacks you can do with just metal chains. But before we do that, if you're interested in the Tetris stories, this is the first part of an 11-part series that I wrote called Bloody Crosses. It's in Dutch. If you're interested, the link will be in the description. So, survival hacks with chains. This is something that I've been experimenting with lately, and to be honest, I don't find much other information about it on the internet to see if other people have tricks like this, but not there are tricks in more technical aspects of in jobs or people who have certain skills in their jobs, but not really into modern times, and especially not prepping. And you would understand why, because chains are heavy, and yeah, you would not want to have something heavy like this in your bug-out bag. But I've been thinking about this lately, and there are actually a lot of benefits about taking a chain with you. And yeah, I've discovered some old-timey tricks with this. First of all, weight. Most people will say weight is a big problem, but in my opinion, this is not really that heavy. If you also depends on what kind of a material or a steel or metal the chain is made out of, or what quality it is, and also how much you take, and the thickness and the length of the chain can be a factor in how much it weighs. So I would say take something that would be strong enough to carry you, but not too big. It should not be duty enough to pull a car, let's say. So that's a small tip that you can do with it. Another thing that some people would probably have against chains is they make a little bit too much noise if you carry them. But there is actually an old-timey trick for this, and that is this. As you perhaps can see, I put some wire between the links of the chain, and that way the chain would make less. As you can perhaps can hear, you almost not hear anything because the rope between the chain links are preventing the links from clacking against each other. So this is just a small trick if you want to be more stealthy with chains around you. So that's actually a fun hack to do. So what other uses can you have with chains that you do not have with rope? First of all, my biggest problem would be a campfire. And especially if you use something like paracord, which is often made out of synthetic materials, and even with natural materials like cotton or something like that, you have the problem of a campfire. The heat will get up, and especially synthetic materials can start to melt or start to get loose. And yeah, perhaps in that regard, a chain could be a good solution. So imagine if you have a campfire here, you just have a branch or something that you make with a tripod or some other entrapment that you have with two branches. You can just put one part into the ground on depending on the length you need, and the other part is going over the branch that is high enough, and you lower the pot. Of course, you need something to hang the pot on top of it. I'm going to take this off first a little bit, otherwise. So you can hang the pot over a branch that is a little bit higher, and yeah, perhaps even sometimes if your fire is big enough, it can even to a certain height burn or melt the rope, especially if it's paracord above your fire. So that way you have enough length of material that is fireproof in a regard. So for a campfire, I would say it's already a point in its favor. Another thing that you can do with it is build a shelter, a strong shelter, because but I would say do this more if you're going to do a long-term hike, or if you are on a bug out and you're not sure about your destination. So rope can deteriorate over a certain period of time. So especially if the rope is made out of natural materials, it can degenerate over a certain time period, especially when it gets into hard conditions like mist, water, rain, cold, heat, yeah, and your cord will not be suitable or safe for a long time. So I would say take a chain. You can hang your shelter above it, and you can just put it around the tree. And instead of if you're not good with knots, you can just take one of these carabiner hooks, put it around the tree like that, and you always have a strong chain. If you have one of those, I already talked about this in my video about my buggle bag, hangmats, sleeping bag. So this is also strong enough to put around any tree, and yeah, this will not deteriorate, and you will not have to be afraid that the rope will start to how do you say this, to pull, and so you hang lower, or the fear that the rope is not strong enough. That's a problem you don't really have with a chain. Um, what is another benefit of it? If you're going to hunt some big game, you would have experienced that sometimes it's kind of difficult to hang the how do you say this, hang the legs of the deer onto a suitable way to process the carcass and the hide. So you can just hang this yet again with a light carabiner hook around the legs, and you can hang it around several points. So it's not only you, if you're not good with knots, you don't have to make a knot here, knot here, and knot here, and knot here. But with certain carabiner hooks, you can make several points where you can hang the carcass on and process it more efficiently. The same thing goes for if you catch multiple games, like if you catch several birds in one during a bug out or a hike or a hunting trip. Then the problem could be you shot a few birds and you have to process them. But you can, with just one of those light hooks, you can hang them on like this, and you can easily carry them or start to in a way do a efficient thing like plucking. One person plucks while the other person starts to gut them, and that way it's perhaps a little bit more safer to eat because there is less chance that something will unsanitary will get in contact with it. And yeah, if you don't have much time, it's more handier that way. And that way you can also, if you have if you have more persons, you can carry one person in front got the end of the chain, the other person got the other end of the chain. Yeah, you can carry it like yeah, you know those carry how do you say this, carry chairs that people used to use in colonial times. The same thing you can do with multiple birds in a same row. So you have multiple ways to carry game, is what I'm trying to say. And another thing that you perhaps can do is, if it's really heavy and you need it to be a little bit more sturdy, you can just take any branch or stick, put it around it like that, carry it with two or one person, like with the hobos that you carry it on your back. But yeah, of course with the whole end, and you can just hang it on several points, and you can carry big loads at the same time, like game, buckets of water, and that way you can carry it with two persons a little bit more easier. That's another thing you can do with these chains. You can, if you have enough hooks, or you can improvise more hooks, the sky is the limit as much as you can carry. So that's another way you can use chains efficiently. Another thing you can do is for fishing, actually. If you have the chain but you want to fish big game, the problem is sometimes even with something like a paracord, the problem is if you want to improvise fishing, the fishing line will not be strong enough, especially if you catch something bigger. If you want to catch something bigger, what you can do is you can first of all improvise a hook, attach this to this, make sure that it will not fall off. That's with any type of metal, or perhaps a lip of a can or something else like that. You can hang to a chain and hang it into the water, and you don't have to be afraid that the cord will snap. Or you can hang you can pull it more efficiently. Another thing you can do is you can take a file and you can start to file out a knot, so you have a hook, and then you have an improvised fishing line for bigger fish or game that you perhaps have. Um, Another thing you can probably do with this, if you have a bug out bag, I know it might sound stupid, but if you have a lock, what you can do is sometimes your bug out bag is too heavy to carry for certain tasks. So if you want to hunt, you have to be more stealthy and nimble, and with a bug out bag on your back, you cannot really do that. So what I would advise, take only the most necessarily things out of your bug out bag onto your body. You go hunting, but your bug out bag, you of course you will hide it. But the problem is, even if you camouflage it, hide it, there is a certain chance that another person will stumble up on it and will take your bug out bag. So just like with a bicycle, you can just take a chain, but I would say don't only put it around attached to the bug out bag. So that's the first thing, of course, is they cannot take the whole bug out bag because it's linked around a tree, a pole, or whatever place that you have, and yeah, they cannot take it away, but they can take everything out of it. But if you have one of those bug out bags where the zippers are all one of those eyes, you can put it through every zipper in a way that even and put it around the tree, put a lock on top of it, so that way the person cannot take the bug out bag, and it's much more difficult to open the zippers of the bug out bag because the chain is in all the loops of the zippers, and yeah, then you have more chance that more of your stuff will still be there. Or yeah, of course somebody can say, but what if somebody just tears open the bag? Well, that's a chance you have to take, but you can save some. You can you at least have a chance that they will not take the whole bug out bag. They will not open it. So those are two steps that somebody has to come over before they can steal stuff from you. Another thing that I would say is if you're going to use a lock, so that I was questioning, would I use a lock with a cipher combination so I can just open it whenever I have to go in a hurry, or take one with a lock? And I would say take one with a lock because it's harder to pick lock one of these than one of those locks with a cipher combination, because if you have 10 minutes, you can easily do it with 3 or 4 or ciphers in a row to open it. But with a key, you have to pick lock it, or have other ways to open it. By the way, watch my video on how to open these locks and pick locking. So yeah, that is something that you have to do on your own accord. Another thing that I noticed, if I want to hang my bug out bag higher up to, especially when it got food in it, to keep it away from animals like rodents or even bigger game. So like if you are in an area with bears, especially, you do not want your bag with food in your shelter or in your camp. So you want to hang it high where the bear cannot reach it. And I would say this is more handier with chains than with rope, because if I want to do that with rope, I always have the problem that there is too much friction, or it will get gnawed onto something, so I get stuck, and yeah, then my rope is stuck onto a higher branch, and there is only a certain height you can throw it. With a chain, you don't have that problem. If this is the branch, oh, because the chains, the thing is, you put something on the end of the chain, something heavy, perhaps a rock or a padlock like this, and you throw it. It's more easier to use a chain to get less friction above the branch, that it will not get stuck onto it. So that's a benefit about a chain over a rope if you want to throw it over, and it's more easier to get it back. Another thing, the same thing can apply if you want to climb over the wall. If you have one of those, if you can improvise a bigger hook like this and you throw it over a wall, you have more weight to throw it further away, and you have chance that it will climb over the wall and get stuck onto it, and instead of a rope, because if I'm going to do some rope climbing, I always have the problem that I have too much friction. So if I use something small like this, like most paracords, it's more or harder to climb with it. So you almost have to do a certain climbing techniques. But if you got a chain, where is the end? You have more grips with your hands that you can climb over a wall that is perhaps 1 or 2 meters higher above you with a hook attached to it. So that's another benefit. Another hack you can do with the chain is self-defense. We all saw those movies where the bikers have chains and they do this kind of thing, but actually it's kind of a good improvised self-defense weapon. So if somebody is an aggressor and you have a padlock attached to it as a more weight, and it's also like one of those ninja weapons where they use it to trap their opponent. So if you perhaps have the other person has a knife, a bat, a hammer, or whatever. Ow! I knocked on my own hand, so you can also see how dangerous it is. So if somebody has a weapon, you can just yeah, it's a little bit difficult to do on your own because I have not only one hand to throw it. As you can see, it goes around the weapon, and now if you have a chance, you can throw the hand that has the weapon off balance, and you can go into a counter attack, or just use it as a blunt weapon to smack somebody against the head or against their hand, like I did against my own fingers, and it hurts like hell. So imagine if you do it on purpose, real hard on somebody's fingers, even if they have a weapon, it will hurt like hell, and it will give you an advantage to go into a counter attack as a self-defense. So yeah, I would say if you have a chain, always have a padlock hanging on to it. It does not have to be a very heavy padlock, but yeah, it depends on your own strength and the amount of weight you want to use this. You can also use smaller chains for this perhaps, but yeah, it all depends on your own accord. I thought I had some other hacks that you can do with this. I probably forgotten. Oh yeah, another thing that you can do is if you have how do you say this? If you're going to catch some water, so sometimes, especially in Belgium, we have this thing that water is in kind of a deeper space, so it's kind of dangerous to get to the water and scoop it out because the ground can be wet. You can fall into it, you can glide into it. It's too often too dangerous. So if you have something like a carabine hook, or to attach a bucket or some other container, or perhaps just something like this, and just you can throw it into the water and retrieve it. That way, perhaps it's not the best example, but that way you can just take it and scoop it up with water. That with just a normal rope you can also do this, but in my opinion, like I said again, if you do this on the side of a river or some other smaller rivers that you have in Belgium, that's typical. They have a lot of plants on the side, so with this rope, it always gets snared into some plants, and it will be harder to retrieve it. With the chain, it will more glide around it, and you have more weight to throw it further away. That's another benefit, like I said. Yeah, and yeah, if you're going to make an improvised brancard, how do you say this? So if you build something to carry a wounded person on top of it, if you have two thick branches, you can use the chain to make a zigzag pattern that will be more handier or faster or more dutiful to carry a full person than with perhaps rope. And the rope can also be tiny enough to cut into the skin of the person that is lay on top of it. With a big chain, you do not have that problem, and you can make it as wide as you want on each segment. So yeah, chains you can do, like I said before. If you got something, you can think You can think dozens of applications or survival uses or hacks for it, as long as you have the imagination, as long as you have a broad mind on and the survival mentality to do more with less. And that is actually the thing about this video. All these things I tried out by just thinking, what more can I do with just a simple chain? So I think I'm ready. So thank you for watching. If you get any other hacks or survival uses for metal chains, please let me know. If I forget one, I'm always eager to learn. Subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Cheers.